Welcome to the Green Urbanist, the podcast for urbanists fighting climate change. I'm Ross. Welcome to part 3 in this mini-series on landscape and urban nature. In this episode, I spoke to James Virgo.
My name's James Virgo. I'm an Associate Directorate and Landscape Architect at LUC.
He tells me about LUC's work on Shoreditch Park. This is a nice case study of taking an existing park and working with the local community to improve it for biodiversity while tackling antisocial behaviour and creating a more welcoming and multifunctional space for local people. Marvellous. So LUC are up for a whole range of awards in different categories today at the Landscape Institute Awards. And I'd like to get into a bit more detail with you about one of them, which is Shoreditch Park. So yeah, just tell us generally, what is it about?
The project came off the back of the Britannia Leisure Centre development and the Section 106 and SIL money that came from that, about £2 million. London Borough of Hackney wanted to spend it on Shoreditch Park, and the brief really was that it was to be the proposals were to be community led, and this was just before COVID when it started, and unfortunately got slightly derailed by COVID along the way. But the proposals were community led, and they were came out of 2 sets of consultation, quite detailed consultation periods that we had. That was run with London Borough of Hackney as well, with their consultation officer. And I think in the first consultation round, we got about over 1,000 respondents on some of the proposals in terms of what people wanted to see. So it was a really positive outcome. Unfortunately, the second consultation period got disrupted by COVID, and so the whole thing was online. But still, I think over about 400 respondents from that. So, and the proposals very much came from that. The council had an idea of the kind of things that they wanted to look at, but it really was informed by the community, and then we drew it all up and built it.
So I have actually been there, not knowing it was your scheme recently, and just thought, oh my god, this is really nice. Because it's an existing park. It's been there for a long time, I presume. Yeah. So what was the impetus to sort of say, okay, this needs a bit of a refresh?
Well, I think the last master plan, which was by Levitt Bernstein, I think it was 2009. I think it was a while ago now, and that very much kind of transformed the park from its old layout into the kind of current structure. And our approach really was that we did want to build on that structure. We didn't really want to start kind of unnecessarily spending the budget on, kind of moving paths around, or, kind of changing the structure if it worked. We really wanted to maximise the money from it. The park had a number of problems. Its former, it was old terraced housing and was bombed during the Second World War. The housing was cleared, and then they sprinkled some topsoil over the top and called it a park, and that has caused problems over the years. The soil profile is very thin. The trees are kind of stunted in some areas, and during the summer it looks really parched, and during the winter the ground gets compacted and it gets waterlogged as well. So it had numerous problems. It was looking a bit tired. The playground was completely hammered and needed a bit of an upgrade. And there were various other issues as well, a lot of dead corners, people getting up to all sorts of nasty behaviour, and we had an interview with the police at one point as well, because loads of local gangs were using it to kind of hide knives and things in the bushes. So all sorts of unsavoury activities. And really, I think our approach was, as I say, to maximise our budget. I think we came at it from an angle of kind of health and well-being generally, and that kind of linked quite nicely with some of the proposals and a lot of the things that came out of the consultation as well. So really the emphasis was on kind of ecological enhancement, weaving it into all of the proposals rather than just kind of tokenistic gestures, kind of here and there. I think they had like a wildlife area, but I think our approach was to try and broaden it and incorporate it into everything. kind of sport and recreation as well, and just general kind of physical activity was a big thing. And there was this whole thing about identity as well. It was quite unusual for a park like Shoreditch Park, which I think is relatively well known and and does have kind of quite a strong cultural identity. But a lot of people said that it didn't. It was a bit bland, and there weren't even any kind of signs that said Shoreditch Park anywhere, or and that it didn't have this heart. It didn't have a kind of centre to it as well. So that really kind of informed all of the proposals, and I think we achieved some great things with the budget that we have as well. Some kind of big impacts, and I think we're all really really proud of it. Actually, it was hard work and worth it in the end. Yeah.
The ecological design approach is, I think, a really interesting one, because I think that's a challenge many practitioners see, in the sense of taking a place that has been managed for sort of amenity grassland and being very low by biodiversity value. That's sort of something that's quite typical, I think, of many British parks. What was your sort of approach, or what were your lessons learned in terms of really enhancing that in a meaningful way?
Yeah, well, one of the things in the brief actually was to not increase the maintenance budget with any proposals. So, which was a challenge when they also want lots of planting as well. So we worked with our landscape managers a little bit on that, and directly with the local management maintenance team as well on all the proposals through the design and development stages, so that they were happy with what we were proposing. But also, I mean, the biggest intervention, I suppose, was that the wildflower meadow that was kind of seeded right in the middle of the site, and that was probably one of the areas that suffered most in terms of the grass quality, and. I think we proposed something that was quite suitable for the soil strata there, and I think the impact was quite dramatic as well. The other large area, obviously, was the sports pitch, and that is pretty well used, but again, very very poor quality. So we kind of looked at improving the soil quality there and adding in drainage. But
you mentioned a few times, and it's interesting, because this thing of having quite a limited budget, and then whoever's going to be maintaining it afterwards wants, obviously, that to be as minimal as possible. And I think that is, unfortunately, a reality across the sector, really, isn't it? When you're dealing with say, a limited budget,
yes,
plus that need to keep it low maintenance, was there any learnings from doing that? Like, how do you approach that and just make sure you can still deliver a really good scheme, with that limitation? Because that's very real for many practitioners.
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying it was a low budget. It was £2 million. I mean, it's not to be sniffed at, but I suppose it doesn't go very far when you're kind of you spread it out across a big park. But I think a big part, we did a lot of work actually right at the beginning on understanding the existing park and kind of really reviewing the existing structure. I kind of knew it personally as well. I live in the area, which helped as well. But they'd spent a lot of money on things like lighting, and the paths actually were all in really good condition, which is quite unusual. There were a couple of areas that had some old resin band that was cracked, but generally it was fine. So why spend the money on something like that, which actually is very expensive, that can eat up a huge part of your budget, hard surfacings particularly. So I think we and both Hackney really wanted, as I say, to get the best out of the budget, make an impact as well. So it was about kind of layering in new facilities as well, so things that will have the big impact. So playground was a kind of an easy win in the sense that it was an obvious choice. It was, it's one of the biggest parks in the borough. It caters, a massive area. This playground wasn't working very hard. It was a bit dilapidated and a bit tired, and but really still well used and well loved. So we really sought to maximise the kind of the play value within that space that was available, and because there was a lot of areas that were kind of underused, but also I suppose sports, as I say, was a key thing, and with the Britannia development and all of the facilities that were there as well, coming up with, I suppose, kind of proposals that complemented that as well. And the Muga was an obvious choice as well. That was something that came out from a lot of people. They wanted just a large ball court area that was free to use, that people could play basketball in. And interestingly, it's been used for roller skating a lot, which I don't think any of us anticipated. But and we got the best out of that as well in terms of the kind of the surface design as well. We worked with a local artist whose name has forgotten me. It's escaped me. I'm sorry. We were quite keen that was quite bright and dynamic and actually kind of quite representative of the character of the area as well. So. And I think that's been a success and it's been well used. And then there were other things we had to accommodate as well. There was an existing beach volleyball court. We worked with the London Beach Volleyball Association to get that in the right place and get the kind of the details right for that as well. So and an outdoor gym as well. So and then there were other simple wins as well, just such as pushing back some of the fences as well. There were a lot of unnecessary fences. A lot of people use it for running, so we just had to move a couple of fences, and then you get this kind of perimeter running trail around the park, which wasn't there before, and makes a huge difference on how people use it. So yeah,
it sounds quite obvious, but it's like, listen to what people want, prioritize that, don't spend money on things that people don't care about. It's exactly. I love the simplicity of it.
Yeah, you have to kind of put your own agenda aside. I think sometimes you always, I think as a landscape designer, you always approach a project and think, right, what can I do with this? And you come up with hundreds of ideas, and in a sense you have to kind of put that aside and listen to what other people want.